Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Intellectual Intercourse. I'm Tranna.
And I'm Adam. Tranna, before we get into it, I'm just wondering, where are you? What are you? How are you?
We haven't seen each other in literally 3 months. And this is like our first face-to-face conversation in 3 months. I feel like the last 3 months have been the busiest months I've had in a really long time, where everything work-wise and personal life and family life have just been so demanding and so overwhelming. So I'm feeling quite fried. I think you know, and probably a lot of our listeners know, as a Pisces, like I need a lot of resting time, like especially in between things. But things have just been so go, go, go that I just feel very unrested. I think also maybe you'll relate to this as a Sagittarius, but like I feel a lack of freedom in my life right now. I feel very weighed down by all of my responsibilities. And I just want to feel free. Like I love days where you wake up and there's no plan and you can either make plans to meet up with someone or go do something or literally just do nothing. I just like the freedom of possibility. But every single day I have a to-do list. So I just feel very trapped right now. What about you?
This is very similar for me. I really love flexibility in my day, like the ability that I could take a nap or do something or be a bit spontaneous. But I feel that every single day it's non-stop planned from the moment I wake up till I go to bed, and still feeling like I can't fit everything in. So I definitely feel like I am completely controlled by my schedule and less having fun or freedom.
The schedule's controlling you. You're not controlling the schedule. And I'm fed up of this. It reminds me of this episode of Absolutely Fabulous when Adina decides that she's going to be organized.
Yes.
And so she has like an electronic organizer and she's like trying to follow, all the alarms telling her what needs to be done and when. And then she has this moment where she just loses it and throws the electronic planner into the sink. And she just yells, "Give me back my life." And that's where I'm at right now. Give me back my life.
I feel like since the beginning of the year, it's been non-stop.
Non-stop. There must be something going on astrologically. Like for this last period of time, I don't know what it is, but there's something going on because I don't remember a time in my life that has ever been quite like this.
Yes, something needs to go into retrograde or something needs to like calm down, and I just want a long nap. Like if I could nap for a week, that would be good.
I would like a month.
So we're at episode 8. How are you feeling? What is it like to listen back to the pod? And I guess like I'm curious also if you've had any comments.
I have to admit, I don't listen to our episodes.
Okay.
I know you do because you also do the light editing that has to be done. So you probably listen to it more than I do. And it's interesting. Other podcasts that I've done, I've listened back to. Well, for Chosen Family more because I had to, like for notes and like it was a more edited show. Even for Les Divas, like I'd have to listen to it so I could find the time codes of the clips that I wanted to extract from the episodes. But I find also like our conversations are so intimate that I feel uncomfortable listening back to them. I feel like it existed in the moment. But I feel like the feedback has been so lovely. So thank you to all of you listening. Thank you for interacting with us. It really is nice to feel that it's resonating. For every single episode, I've received at least a couple of messages where people feel very seen. They feel like they can really relate. And it makes me happy that we've made the sort of commitment to really go deep because I think that's what makes it worthwhile. I think that's what makes it worthwhile for us and hopefully what makes it worthwhile for people listening. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I listen back to all of them because I just scanned for all of the profanities that you say and don't want to be public. So I have to go through and weed through what you want to erase.
I've never asked for anything to be erased except for one thing, where I might have accidentally outed someone from my past.
But it's fun to listen to them again. I have these moments where I'm actually laughing, or like the last episode, I remember I was laughing and my partner was there listening to me laughing while I was doing the edit, and he's like, "What are you laughing at?" And I was like, "Nothing." But I've gotten really lovely comments as well. I guess like my objectives for this podcast were really to just put it all out there, and for it to, I guess, resonate with like a queer perspective on our experiences of the world. And I always get really beautiful messages.
Me too. Like, I've gotten some really touching messages.
Like long, thoughtful, like this particular thing really resonated with me, and I've never heard anybody say it this way, and like really appreciative for what we're doing. So, I mean, I think that makes it all worthwhile. And I'm excited to see where it goes. It seems like we have a really consistent listener base. Like, the number of people that are listening to the episodes is very consistent.
Oh, that's so good. I haven't looked at that either, because I think, again, too, like, as I said in our first episode, like, I really wanted this to feel like a very free and easy process and experience, whereas, again, so much of what I do is results driven, you know, like trying to sell a show, trying to get a certain number of tickets sold for whatever event. And like, there's always this pressure for things that I do to succeed in a sort of concrete, traditional way. So, you know, I'm happy that I have this outlet of creativity and self-expression that is just totally removed from any expectations.
Amazing. So shall we dive into our question for this episode?
Let's do it.
So I'm very curious to know this, because I don't really have an understanding of your childhood in this context. And I kind of have some hints as an adult, but are you spiritual?
I think the simple answer is yes. Although I don't really have a spiritual practice. But I pray.
Okay.
Not religiously. And not even consistently. But I feel like in moments where I feel really stressed, like I went to New York recently and I was really stressed about going. And this is going to sound so corny, but in the morning, I like, for the first time in a long time, because usually when I pray, I just sort of speak in my head. It's like an internal dialogue. But the morning that I was traveling, like I literally like made the sign of the cross. I put my hands like in the prayer pose or whatever you call it. And I was just like, please, God, like, be with me today. I'm like so nervous. I'm so scared. Like, and I was traveling alone. And I always travel alone, but I really didn't want to. That time I'd asked you, I'd asked a couple of other people. No one was able to join me, but I just really did not want to be alone. So I literally just prayed to like God to just be with me that day. I needed to feel like there was someone alongside me that day.
Okay.
And very strangely, when I was at the airport, I ran into a friend of mine who happened to be on the same flight, and we got to spend a lot of time together in New York, and it was like, oh my God, like I wasn't alone. Like I actually had someone with me that weekend. So it was strange.
And who is God for you?
That's a good question. I don't really know how to answer that. I don't necessarily see God as like a person. I see them as a kind of force. And I think that, you know, when I'm sort of praying, again, having that sort of internal dialogue, I am speaking to this entity as if I am speaking to a person.
Okay.
But I don't necessarily see it as a person. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have an image of God in my mind. It's not some old man in the sky. I see it more as like a force or an energy that I engage with through internal dialogue, basically.
Is there any period of your life that religion had shown up in your childhood or later?
For sure. I think that my idea of God or the way that I pray is definitely an extension or an evolution of what I learned in childhood.
Okay.
So I am well, I've been baptized, so I guess I am Roman Catholic, but I don't identify with that at all. Like, I'm not a religious person. I do not go to church. There's a part of me that's very resistant towards the idea of organized religion. There's many aspects of it that I really don't like, that I think are very harmful to us collectively. But I was baptized Catholic. I did my first communion. I did my confirmation. I went to a Catholic elementary school. And I think even my high school was Catholic, but we kind of had the choice to either take religion class or moral and ethics.
Okay.
And even at that age, I chose moral and ethics.
Okay.
But when I was a kid in elementary school, again, Catholic elementary school, where religion was part of our education, like I remember even in the 5th grade, like we were each given copies of the Bible, the good news, the New Testament. And I actually really loved it in elementary school. I hated going to church, and my family was not a church-going family, but we would go like maybe a handful of times a year. I remember there was one phase, I must have been around 5 or 6, where my mom would take me and my sister to church every Sunday, but I think that lasted like maybe a month.
Okay.
Or 2 at the most, you know? And I always would feel so bored in church.
Okay.
Like I remember literally bringing my like Aladdin figurines and just like kind of playing with them on the pews. Like I was bored out of my mind. Still am bored out of my mind whenever I go to church. Which is, I don't even remember the last time. There were also years where we would go for midnight mass on Christmas Eve. And there's something kind of nice about that sort of tradition, but ultimately I do not like going to church. But when I was a kid, I loved everything that was sort of religion adjacent. So like, I loved Bible stories, because they're basically fairy tales. But I used to be really interested in them, like when we would be taught. And I loved all the songs. And I remember them all. Friends Are Like Flowers, that was a classic, that was a bop. And I think in church, even when the handful of times that we would go, the singing part was always like my favorite part. I remember we had this one assembly at school, I think it was for Easter or something, where some of the kids were chosen to do readings and we were dressed like apostles.
Okay.
So I loved getting into like, the apostle costume and doing my little reading. I loved all of those things. And I think that I'm fortunate that the religion that I was taught in school really had nothing to do with anything sort of like social or political, you know? So that wasn't, the religion that I grew up with had nothing to do with like gay people are evil, women shouldn't have a right to choose. It was not like related to any of that. I really do genuinely feel that the religion that was taught to me as a kid was truly in the spirit of just being a good person to your fellow person.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you?
What about me in what way?
Like, did you grow up with, like, are you Catholic?
I was baptized in the United Church, so Christianity, but I'm not Catholic.
And United Church is like the more open one?
Yes.
Where they're like less homophobic?
Yes. You're able to be, I think, a like gay or lesbian, or some of the acronym are possible to be a priest or a minister, I think they're called, instead of a priest. But yeah, I was baptized there. I did not grow up in a church-going family. Like, it was similar to you in the sense of there might have been really small periods where we went a couple times.
Yeah.
And there was always the expectation that we would go for the midnight mass on Christmas Eve. So that was very like my upbringing, and my mother was always, you should go to church more. And I would just say to her, well, you should go to church more. So there was a lot of that, but not actually attending. But I did have a very big religion component to my life. From grade like kindergarten to grade 5, I went to a non-denominational school. So there was no like predominant religion subscribed to that school. But I was bullied so horrendously that I was like at a point at grade 5 where I was like, I am not going back to school anymore. Like, I'm just not going back. It's not worth it. I'm not happy. I'm not learning, because the bullying was just so intense for me. And the only other option for me in the town was to go to another school, which was Pentecostal, which was actually quite religious in my context of like...
That's where they speak in tongues, right? They get
tongues.
possessed and speak in tongues.
Yeah. And so for grade 6, I left my old school and went to this religious Pentecostal school. And it was a complete shock for me. Like...
The religion aspect of the school?
Yeah, like I would arrive in the morning in homeroom, we would have to read the Bible. And
Wow.
It was like commenting on the Bible and interpreting the Bible every single morning. There was like different religion classes all related to Christianity and Pentecostal approach to the religion. There was a church attached to the school, so we would go into the church for ceremonies, and people would be speaking in tongues and all of that.
Did you have a moment where you were possessed by the Spirit of the Lord?
No, I've never spoken tongues in
You
that
didn't
context.
even pretend? No.
And I was in that context, and because all of my peers were so into it, I would also go to Christian Ambassadors, like a CA youth group, on like Thursday evenings, which was another church ceremony for kids. And I used to go to church camp in the summer.
And did you enjoy it? Like, were you getting something out of it?
I don't know, honestly. Like, I just remember always being there and feeling like an imposter. Like, I'm pretending that like I'm doing all the things that are expected of me, and became really good at that. But always when I was writing that, I was like, what the fuck is this? Like another exam on like Moses or something.
Right.
And I'm like, this is just like me getting really good at blending in and not voicing who I am as an individual.
And were the kids nicer there? Did the bullying stop when you went to that school?
Yeah, there was a significant difference. I didn't have the bullying that was so intense or whatnot. And what happened is that shortly, I say I was there for about 3 years, and then the government of Newfoundland did a referendum and a vote for the island to basically abolish denominational schools.
Okay.
So that they couldn't exist anymore. There was just one school system, and all students went to that. So all the schools merged. So all my bullies came back later.
Oh, no.
But yeah, so I have this like, it was very traumatic for me. Like the idea of religion and it being forced on me, and also not coming from a religious family, not having the tools of like, how do I navigate this or what do I do with it? It was really not, as a queer kid, it was like, I knew I was different. I didn't know how I was different.
Right.
But I was just like, this is not for me. It's weird. And I left that school system, and I never went back, I think, to a church again in that context.
But during that time, like, I know you felt really disconnected from religion and feeling like an imposter and just sort of like pretending to be invested in this thing that everyone else was pretty genuinely invested in.
Yeah.
But during that time, like, did you still feel like you had a personal relationship to God outside of that?
No, it was like so ingrained into me that to be queer and God didn't go together. So there was just no place for me in that. And
okay, so even at the Pentecostal school, you were being told that homosexuality is wrong?
Exactly, yes. So
like very explicitly?
Explicitly. It was very like black and white in the doctrine of how things were taught. So I didn't have clarity of where I was on the queer spectrum, but I knew that there was something.
Yeah.
And not only was I like pretending to be straight, but also like pretending that this was okay with me to be in this sort of religious context. Like there was just a lot of levels of weirdness there that fucked me up.
Yeah. Yeah. My relationship to like organized religion was so much more relaxed. Like we didn't have Bible study. We had like maybe one religious period a week. Maybe it wasn't even once a week, honestly. I don't remember it being that frequent. And there were some students who were not Catholic, whose parents didn't want them receiving that education. So when we did have religion class, they would literally just go sit in the office. But I remember that not happening too frequently. So I don't think that it was too often.
Yeah.
You know? But I do think that like maybe it was like every Monday morning we would say like the Our Father.
Okay.
And the Hail Mary, or
Yeah.
is that it? Hail Mary, Mother Mary,
Something like that.
something like that. I still remember the prayer vaguely, but yeah, I feel like I was fortunate that my interaction with religion was really pretty chill, and it was more again just about like singing songs and like trying to be a good person, which is like what it should be, you know. Like I feel actually kind of grateful because I do think that it. Not that it taught me, because I think that I was also learning that from home and just, you know, learning it from various sources. But I think, again, like it was just about trying to be a good person.
Sure.
You know, and I think that it gave me examples of like how to try to be a decent person to other people.
For me, it was all fear-based. And it was
Like if you don't do X, Y, Z, you're going to hell.
Yeah, it's that. And then also like kind of molding us into be missionaries. It's like, you better like get your friends saved and like convert to the religion because you want them to be in heaven with you.
Oh my God.
So there's like all of this pressure. And it was so interesting because I would see, you know, certain individuals that were very like, committed to the church and whatnot. But then they would go and do something like, suddenly they would start smoking for a weekend. And then they would go back on Monday morning and they would be saved again. Like there was just like this, you know, weekday saved versus weekend saved. And then like, I remember even at one point, like one person was like, oh, it was so good to have a break from being saved. And then like just feel like, oh, well, it doesn't matter because I could be saved later. And like, this is all a scam.
It is all a scam. I mean, so much of it is, you know, and I mean, obviously it's still so like relevant today, like the scam element, like obviously Gwen Stefani joining the Hallow app, and it's so insane to me. And usually the people I think that sort of connect to the more organized side of things, or the side of it that is very prescriptive and preachy in the most literal sense, those are usually the people who don't even live out the real values that Jesus was trying to teach. It's wild how far so much of organized Christian religions have like really gone so far away from like Jesus's message, which was literally just be cool.
Yeah.
You know, just be kind and treat other people the way you want to be treated. Like that's literally all it is.
I remember that once the schools became non-denominational and I had to take a world religion class, I was like, oh my God, this is so exciting. Like it's the Sagittarius in me, like knowledge, wanting to explore the world, and like looking at religion from that became so exciting to me, like kind of like an anthropology study. And then I was able to sort of step back from that religious experience of going through like 3 years of really intense Pentecostal religion ideas, and just sort of be like, oh, maybe it was just an anthropology study that I did, but I was like didn't have the skills to be able to separate myself from it.
Right.
But it was so great to see all of those Pentecostal kids have to learn about other world religions.
Yeah.
And they were
like in your face.
Complaining about it, being upset. And I was like, well, I sat through it for 3 years. You can take one course.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing too. I think people that really invest in their sort of like organized religion life, any message that feels like a threat to that is very dangerous.
Yeah.
But I think that I didn't take a world religion class, but I took a class on cults in CJEP, and that was a blast. Like I don't remember too much, unfortunately, but I do remember just being so fascinated by just the mechanics of it all, you know, and the way that people can be so bamboozled. But I think sometimes, and maybe this is going to sound really judgmental, but sometimes people feel like they're missing something in their lives, and being part of a sort of regimented thing where you have to follow certain rules in order to go to heaven or avoid going to hell. It gives some kind of direction to their lives, which I don't think is inherently a bad thing. I think it's more just when it starts to become something that you're enforcing on other people, or like you said, trying to go save other people, or just, again, even trying to shape public policy around your religious beliefs.
Sure.
That's like absolutely crazy to me.
Yeah.
Because even though I might have my personal reasons for being like very against organized religion and religious institutions, if that's what you want in your life, I'm not going to stop you. I'm not going to make an effort to like stop you from wanting what you want in your life. But obviously they so rarely afford us the same consideration.
Yeah, exactly. I think that like at the base, people want to be accepted and loved. And when you see like cults or religion or organized religion or whatnot, there's almost like a template where you can follow where it's like, if I do X, Y, Z, then I will get acceptance and love. But it's kind of an illusion because those things that you're doing or performing might not actually be who you are as a person.
Yeah.
So like it's a false acceptance and love that I think if people that are really subscribed to those models really ask, do I really truly feel accepted and loved? The answer is potentially no.
Well, especially because it's such a conditional love.
Exactly.
You're literally being told you will be loved by God if you do these things, if you believe these things. Whereas, like, I genuinely believe that God or like the universe is a completely unconditional love, you know? And it's interesting because our last episode was about feeling connected to that universal love energy, which I think a lot of people do think of as God or some sort of spiritual experience. Like there's also a connection between drugs and spirituality, and drugs being a gateway to universal energy.
Yeah.
All of it.
So you said that you pray. Like, how do you determine the thing that requires you to pray?
Well, again, it's usually in times of stress.
Okay.
It's also usually, and actually I don't do it every night, but I try to. The only sort of little prayer that I do maybe more religiously is I put out a sort of feeling into the universe, or I literally ask the universe or God to just take care of the people that I love.
Okay.
So I don't do it, I don't always remember to do it every night, but I try to. It's just literally a very simple, like, please take care of, you know, and I just list all the people that I really love in my life. And it usually ends with like all my friends and family. But I do that. I want the people that I love to be protected. You know, I want everyone that I care about to be safe and to be healthy. And then in times of stress, I just kind of I don't even know what I really ask for. I either ask for a resolution to something. You know, sometimes it's very like specific where it's like, I mean, it's rare that I'll say, please, God. Again, going to New York was like the first time where I feel like it was literally like God.
Yeah.
Almost himself, you know, like almost in a very traditional like idea of God. But usually it's more just expressing the need for like assistance, you know, just like, please help me through this period, or like, please make this thing go away. I don't get like down on my knees. I don't say the oh, our Father. I don't say the Hail Mary.
You say that for other things.
Exactly. Do you? Like, we've spoken about your childhood experience with like God and religion, and you looking at God as this like, you know, sort of unfriendly, unwelcoming, unloving presence. But now, do you have a personal relationship with any sort of concept of God?
No, none at all. I guess like if I'm thinking back throughout my adulthood, there were moments where I did pray. And even in high school, there were moments that I did pray too, but I don't know if they are like prayers to a God. They're more like meditations or like manifestations. in high school, I was exposed to a lot of OCD at
Okay.
various different points, like this idea of like even numbers, odd numbers
For yourself or but from people around you?
around me, and I sort of absorbed it as well. So like the idea of like turning on a light switch and it not feeling right, and then having to turn it off and then turn it on again, and like then it'd be like, well, I did that 3 times, it's not good, I should do it 2 times so that the sequence of the number is better. Like these really weird things. And I would often preoccupy myself that if I didn't do things on the even numbers, something bad would happen to me or my family. And I used to be constantly in these meditations, and I kept on doing it. I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, it's just ridiculous. And then eventually I just stopped.
Okay.
And I grew out of it, but I would be in these meditative things of like, okay, I did the numbers right. Everybody's going to be okay. And like, then I would be like, well, I said everybody's going to be okay. So they're not going to be okay because I said it, so I would have to undo it and then redo it again. It was this really complicated thing that just kind of spiraled for me. But I was in these meditative states about those things quite a bit. And similar to you, when I would travel, I would get on the plane and I would do like this prayer or meditation that the plane needs to stay intact, that the pilot needs to know what they're doing, and that everything is going to be okay, that we're going to take off safely, we're going to fly, and we're going to land. And I would do that meditation maybe like 10 or 15 times during a flight.
Yeah.
And then eventually I was traveling more and more for work, and I was like, I can't be doing this. Like, I'm exhausted.
So you don't do it anymore when you travel?
No, don't do it anymore. It doesn't come out to me. I don't say a prayer or manifestation at night.
What about in times in your life when you feel either lonely, stressed out, overwhelmed? Like, is there an internal dialogue that you either have with yourself or some other being or force?
No, I think I just disassociate.
Okay.
Like I go into a state of like being overwhelmed or just letting it go and then surrendering it versus holding on to it.
So it's more like silence within you?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a stillness, or like probably like an energy charge, but it's not like I'm looking for an answer. It's like it will come in time.
Yeah. And do you ever pray for things? Not necessarily material things, but like things to happen in your life?
No, not at all. I don't like wish or hope or like try.
So you don't believe in the power of manifestation?
I think I do, but it's not something that I practice. Like if I want a specific thing to happen in the future, I'm not at home like trying to manifest it to happen. It's more like, will the world let it happen for me?
Right.
Than me trying to like will it to be.
Which I think is a better approach personally. I think I feel similarly. Like I don't think, I think again, even in Absolutely Fabulous, because Adina is also like a casual Buddhist. And like her daughter always mocks her and also is just like, you're making a mockery of this religion, you know? And I think at one point she even tells her mom like, the universe is not a catalog that you can just like order things from, you know? But some people really do have that approach.
Yeah.
Like their meditations or even prayers are all really centered around like getting things, whether material or immaterial, but it's about getting.
Yeah.
You know? Whereas it's more about trusting in the universe that I will be brought to where I need to be, that the things that are meant to happen will happen.
Yeah.
And I don't even necessarily believe that everything happens for a reason, but I believe things happen as they're meant to, which maybe kind of sounds like the same thing, but I think it's more just in the sense that there's also a very big part of me that just feels like human existence is so fucking bizarre and weird and makes no sense. So how could anything really have a reason?
Yeah.
But it more just is. Things are.
I mean, I think that we need, to some extent, a mood board, or like this idea of like, where am I going or what am I attracting in the universe? And I think that like, if you have that clarity and direction, like you take action and steps that, you know, the universe will either allow the door to open or close. I mean, I'm just thinking of myself in my head. I'm like, that sounds so privileged. Like so many people in the world don't have access to so many things. So it's not always the case, but I don't think that I sit in the world without direction or clarity of what I want to work towards. But I'm not at home trying to like mysteriously manifest
Right.
them without action.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think you really can. You know, I mean, I know we've been like the sort of woo woo, like, or the more woo woo stuff. Like, remember when The Secret was super popular? Do you remember that book?
Yeah.
Where like people really felt like they could just will things to be without action,
Yeah.
without preparation, which I just don't think happens, you know?
But if I go back to the question that I asked you, like, I think my answer would be the opposite. I don't think that I am spiritual, but in some ways I do think that I am very spiritual at the same time. Like, if I think about the mushroom episode and this idea of being connected and like that there's an energy in the world, like, I really believe that. I
Me
feel like that
too.
we're all connected
I
in
do.
some ways.
Me too.
Like, I guess if I would even,
I think believing that, I mean, and who am I to say, but there's a part of me that hearing you say that, like, I think that if you hold that belief, that is inherently spiritual because some people don't hold that belief. Some people have a more, I don't know what the philosophy would be. Like, part of me wants to say the word like anarchist, but I don't know if that's the right word, or maybe even nihilistic, where some people really do genuinely feel that like there is no love energy, there is no God, there is no connection. We are truly just this random species that exists, but there's no purpose, there's nothing behind that.
yeah,
I don't feel that way.
me either. I mean, I'm not like super like educated in this area, but like my idea of spirituality is like there is a presence of like consciousness or love or whatever word that you want to put onto it, and like it's just slithered up into a body experience.
Yes.
And that we're kind of through that experience we forget that there's an ultimate consciousness or love.
Yes.
And that it's so funny because like I'm here having a conversation with you, but if I believe that, I'm actually just talking to myself.
What do you mean?
That if there's a singular love or consciousness and,
Oh, right.
and I'm part of it and you are
Yeah.
just me.
That's true.
And that's kind of beautiful. Like
It
if
is.
we take that approach to like spirituality or connectedness, it's like, how could I ever be mad at you or anybody else or whatever the situation is? They're just having an experience of the world that they're in pain or suffering or whatever the context is. And I'm like, but it's still just me.
Oh my God. And that's why like I actually get up, and this, I think what you just said actually clarifies something for me, because when I get angry at someone, I then usually feel very bad, because when I step away from the situation, I realize that that's just a person having their experience and they're doing their best. And everyone or almost everyone is generally doing their best to just get by. But unfortunately, some people just get caught in all the traps that I think separate us from that unity that you're describing, you know. And ironically, organized religion is one of those divisive forces that actually disconnects us from the loving God, universe, unifying energy, whatever you want to whatever you want to call it. That's just so ironic to me that like often organized religion disconnects you from that love, you know, just as much as, and we've said it so many times, it keeps coming up, I guess, because it is the sort of dominant force in our culture, but like capitalism keeps us separate from it, and everything that capitalism enforces in our lives, you know, prioritizing work and productivity over relationships and love and connectivity, politics, you know, there's so many traps and we all fall into them in certain ways. I think some of us are able to, at the end of the day, remind ourselves of that energy, but it's hard.
Yeah.
And I think that when we had the mushroom experience, like, it left me with the feeling of like, I just wish I could feel this every day. You know, I wish that I could just live in that energy. And I do believe that that is the way to live.
Yeah.
But we also live in this construct that makes it virtually impossible.
So when we were creating this podcast, we identified somebody as God.
We did, yes. And she is part of my religious experience, Alanis Morissette. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing too. Like, people would argue that there is God or spirituality in the creative process, in making art. Mm-hmm. You know, I think that I do think that that is a big part of making art.
Well, for Tori Amos, I mean, in our last interview, it was very interesting. She just said that the songs come to her.
Yes.
She's actually like pulling from spirits or energies or like even deceased people, I believe.
Yeah, and she also calls them the muses.
Yeah.
When she speaks like that, I imagine that there are like 5 fairies that each have a different energy or a different responsibility that Tori is like in communion with regularly. Tori feels like someone that's very connected to another realm.
Yeah.
That is spiritual, that is divine, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was so funny because her daughter was calling her out because she's like, as a feminist mom, like you have to like take ownership that you created these songs. You can't just say that they're muses floating by and the songs come to you.
But I would disagree with her daughter. I don't think that because that's the other thing too. Like, I think organized religion has such a male connotation. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a man-made thing. You know, usually religions are led by men. Mm-hmm. But I think that when we're talking about like the universal energy or like the creative energy, I see that much more as like a feminine force, like the feminine divine, you know? So I don't know. I think that I can understand Tori feeling like it's just something that she's channeling versus creating herself.
Okay.
I think a lot of artists feel that way, like that they're receiving something from some sort of like force that's just beyond them.
Yeah.
I've never felt that way. Like, I feel like, I mean, my art is like writing and comedy, and I feel like I'm really the one steering that ship.
So maybe it's time to let the muses in.
Maybe. I don't even know how to find them. I would love to let the muses take over because I'm tired.
What other ways does spirituality show up for you?
Not many more. I would love it to be a bigger part of my life. Like, I would like to be more intentional. I don't think meditation is for everyone. So like sometimes I feel like there's this pressure, or not pressure, but I feel like sometimes when there's a desire to be more spiritual or more connected to your spirit or your spirituality, there's you know, the sort of, it's like its own thing. Like when you look at sort of like the wellness industry and people that talk about like meditation, doing yoga, it's like that also feels like very inaccessible to me and like doesn't really interest me, you know? Yeah. I think that for me, like again, that weekend that we did mushrooms, like that felt like very spiritual. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's like I want more experiences like that because that's where I really felt it so strongly. Mm-hmm. You know?
And what do you mean? Like you're almost describing that there's like you, the person, and then there's the spirit of you. Like what's the difference? Are they the same thing?
Oh my God. Probably. But probably that's the case for all of us, you know? Like we adopt an identity. We get attached to our stories, our narratives, and we move through the world presenting as a person that, you know, has certain traits, maybe some that are more organic, some that are more contrived. But who we are when all of that is stripped away is maybe what you were getting at earlier, where we are kind of like just all one entity, you know, and maybe that's the truest self. I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. Do you have an answer?
No, but I
like,
guess,
is there a separate, is there the you that moves through the world and then there's the you that exists when everything else is sort of stripped away?
Well, I guess it kind of leads into my next thought, or my next question is like, from a spiritual perspective or non-spiritual, like what happens to us? Like, what do you believe, you know, if I my body discontinues to exist.
I'll tell you what I believe.
Tell me what you believe.
Well, I really do think we're in some version of the Matrix. I really do. Bizarrely, I've only seen that movie once. I need to see it again because it's very complex, and I don't think that I can even fully articulate it. But the best way that I can describe it is like, have you ever had a dream within a dream where you're dreaming and the experience that you're living in the dream is very real? Like, for all you know, it's actually happening. But then there's a turn in the dream where you realize you're dreaming. And then you wake up and you're like, oh my God, thank God, like, that was just a dream. Or like, oh my God, I was just dreaming. And then other events follow, like you're just going about your day and then you realize, oh my God, this is still a dream too. And then you wake up for real, quote unquote, for real. So I think that, like, I remember one time I had this dream where, like, the one part of it that I remember is that I went to the bathroom and, like, my eyebrows were gone. And I, like, panicked and I'm like, oh my God, where are my eyebrows? And then I woke up and I still had my eyebrows and I was so relieved. And then something else weird happened and then I realized I was actually still dreaming. So when I had my eyebrows back, I was actually still sleeping. And then I woke up, like, for real, like, in my room. But I think that we will get to the closest we can possibly get to death. Like, whether that's you being hit by a bus, like that moment right before the bus hits you, you wake up into the next narrative, into the next sequence of events, which is a life. That's what I believe. I think that it's just a series of awakenings and new experiences. I don't believe that we die.
Okay. So you think that the spirit or the you continues on in another form.
Exactly. But I think it's I believe that it's a human form. I don't know for sure, but and it's probably not all that different to the reality that we know, but it's just another track almost.
Okay.
It's like putting in a new, like, well, this is an outdated reference, but like a new VHS tape in the VCR. It's just like, it's like a new movie. It's a new life, but you're still you. And I mean, obviously I don't know this for sure, but I can't imagine like a nothingness. I can't imagine the void. And to go back to the Matrix, like that's essentially what it is. Like we're actually maybe just in a pod somewhere, just endlessly dreaming.
Yeah.
And again, each lifetime is just a different dream.
Yeah.
And every one of them feels real. What do you think happens?
I don't know. I mean, I guess like I have different scenarios in my head of what it could be, but I'm not attached to any of them. The first one is like maybe there is just a void.
Yeah.
Like, maybe.
Also, I just want to say I really don't know. Obviously,
me either. I'm just
but this is the theory that I've sort of. This is what I would imagine is most probable.
Okay.
But I know that probably sounds insane, and either way, it's gonna be what it's gonna be.
Yeah. But yeah, like I think that there's a possibility that there is a void, that there's a nothingness, like we just don't exist. Like our energy or our spirit is only possible because of our bodies. Like that's one theory. Another theory is kind of similar to yours, like in the sense like a simulations theory. But I guess I don't believe that we're still a body in that scenario. Like the more that I see VR evolving, the more that I see technology evolving, I'm like, it's only time until we can start to have like simulations that are so real that we won't be able to
tell the difference.
So to me, it's like, is there actually a body or is it all a simulation?
Right.
Like that's one theory. And then my third one goes back to what I was saying earlier, that there is like a world and it's physical and there is a consciousness and that we're all just part of that consciousness. And that when we pass away or our bodies don't exist, we just return to that consciousness and become another form. Right. Not like in the sense of like, oh, suddenly I'm a rat. But like I generate other life in other contexts, and maybe I'm split up into different contexts. Who knows?
Well, I mean, like, how else can you really explain, like, deja vu and all those things, you know? Like, sometimes I do feel like we've learned things or we've met people from, like, past existence. I don't feel it very strongly, but, like, there's something, you know? Like, I think fundamentally what I believe is just what, like, to get back to what you're saying, like, I believe in a sort of kind of infinity.
Yeah.
You know, like the infinite quality of the spirit that either returns to that love energy wherever it is, or manifests itself into a physical form in a physical world. But I do think that it's in whatever shape it takes, it's the idea of infinity that I think that's really what I believe in.
But it's so bizarre because if you think about Christianity, it's like it's a
Very
place
finite.
that you go, but it's also infinite. Like, there's not a lot of difference in what you're describing.
Well, but I think, but when it comes to like Catholicism, it's like you're either going to spend the rest of eternity in heaven or hell,
right?
Which I do not believe in at all. But yes, they too. Yeah, I guess maybe that's sort of, is that agreed upon collectively?
I don't know.
That like we are infinite. Maybe it is already agreed upon, except for again like the nihilists who either way don't give a shit. You know. I don't know, but it's freaky to think about. Like when you really think about it. I don't know about you, but sometimes I can spiral when I think about like how am I speaking words that you understand, and like how are you a person sitting across from me, and like what is all of this, like the bizarreness of human existence can, when you really dive into it, can get really freaky.
Have you ever met a person and when you look them in the eyes, you're like, they are an old soul, like that you can tell that they've been around for like centuries or like millennia? I don't know, but
I feel that way a little bit with my niece.
Okay.
I don't think it's necessarily that she's been around for thousands of years, but I'm really like in awe of her empathy and emotional sensitivity and understanding. Like she's only 6, but she was showing this even at like 4, where like someone would be sad and she would like just go to them and be like, are you okay? Like she just has this emotional intelligence that is really like wondrous, honestly, and very beautiful to see. You know, it's so pure. And she's so sensitive to like energies, and you don't even need to tell her what's going on. She senses it, you know? I definitely see that in her. Do you see that in anyone?
Yeah, I mean, there's times that I've looked at people and I just immediately think, I don't know if it's something visually about the eyes, but like there's just something I'm like, wow, you are an old soul.
Well, some people also do just have a wisdom.
Yeah.
And I think those tend to be people that are maybe more connected to this love energy that we've been talking about in a way that they're consistently connected to it.
Sure.
You know, whereas I feel like in my life, I'm like connected and disconnected constantly. Sure. You know, like there
slithers.
Exactly. And there's stretches of time where I'm like very disconnected from it. There are other times where I'm very connected to it. But I feel that in people. I don't know if you feel this. Sometimes I meet people and there's just such a warmth.
Yeah.
And you don't even, like, sometimes it's someone you've just met for the first time, but you feel, not even physically, but just embraced by them. Like their presence and their energy is so healing. And it feels so good to be around them. And they're not even necessarily people that you're close to. They might even be people that you only encountered very briefly, but you feel that. I love people like that. Like, it feels so good to be around them.
What do you think it is?
I think it's that. I think they're really connected.
Okay.
To the love energy. They're less materialist. They're less concerned with the material world. Like I feel like their values are really clear. You know, they don't worry about the shit that's just related to the material world. You know, the way that I, for example, will stress about money and work and taxes, and I stress about all of those things.
Yeah.
But those things are so meaningless. Those things have nothing to do with our souls.
Yeah.
You know, they're so insignificant. They don't matter. but I make them matter, you know? But I think the type of person that I'm describing to you are people who understand that and they're not concerned with things that they don't need to be concerned with, which is so beautiful. I'm so jealous.
Yeah. So what's next for you in your spiritual journey?
Well, I really do need another mushroom trip. I'm like more than ready for another voyage. Like I feel it, you know, like I think that experience that we had, like the connection was so, like the connection to that like spiritual love energy was so profound. And, you know, I would like to find ways to access it in my day-to-day life that maybe don't necessarily require mushrooms. But I think for now, I kind of do need it to bring me there, you know? And, you know, I think the what I took away from our last experience stayed with me for quite a while. You know, like I really did feel freed of my usual pointless concerns, and I felt more empathetic and I felt so much less judgmental, but I need to tune up. And you, what's next in your spiritual journey?
I don't know.
Or what do you, maybe I'll ask it to you in a different way. What do you want from spirituality, or what do you want from the God energy?
It really just comes down to feeling more connected and to have really strong clarity of what's really important. Like it's similar to what you were saying with the people that you see, like their values are just connected to non-material things and the things that don't matter are just not priorities for them in the same way that they are for a lot of us. So like being spiritually connected to the world and the people around me and orienting and navigating my life based on the values of what's truly important.
Yeah, I feel that's a perfect note to end on. I feel that so deeply. I want to do the same.
That's it, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to stay connected, subscribe to the pod, and please, please leave us a 5-star review. It really helps us.
And if you want to get spiritual with us, follow us on Instagram at Gotta Be Deep.
And our theme song is Wipe My Memory Clean by Fair Isles.